What is going on, guys, and welcome back to Touchdowns to Home Runs. My name is Bernie. Thank you for joining us today on the Touchdowns to Home Runs show, the March Madness edition. Hope that your day is going absolutely fantastic. Over the course of this college basketball season, everyone's been saying it's Gonzaga and Baylor on top, Michigan just underneath them, and then everybody else in college basketball underneath those three teams. But as we approach the conference tournaments and eventually Selection Sunday in the March Madness, we have to actually get to the bottom of who is the best team between Gonzaga, Baylor, and Michigan. So how are we going to do that? Well, today we're going to preview each one of these three teams' resumes for the March Madness tournament, and then I have a site that can simulate 10 head-to-head games between each one of these three teams. So we're going to be simulating series of three matchups, which are Michigan versus Baylor, Michigan versus Gonzaga, and then Gonzaga versus Baylor. And this team is going to give us a record out of the 10 games. It'll give us an average score over the 10 games, and it'll also give us an average box score over those 10 games. We'll break them down, and hopefully we can finally figure out who the best team in college basketball actually is. Before we get into the first game and breaking down the first teams, just note that all the stats used in this video are of Friday, February 26th. On the day that I'm actually posting this video, which is on Saturday the 27th, Michigan plays Indiana and Kansas also plays Baylor. Obviously, the stats in this video, the simulations, are not reflective of those scores. But anyways, let's get into previewing the first. The Michigan Wolverines come into this game with a record of 17-1, finding themselves as the #1 team in a very competitive Big Ten. If we look at the ranked wins, they beat 19 Northwestern, 16 Minnesota, 9 Wisconsin, 21 Wisconsin, 4 Ohio State, and 9 Iowa. Michigan is the only one of these three teams that has recorded a loss this season, which came against a ranked number 23 Minnesota team. Flip over to the KenPom rankings in terms of adjusted offense. Michigan is at 121.1, ranking them 6th in the country, which is actually the lowest out of the three teams today. And if we flip over to adjusted defense, 88.5, ranking them also number 6 in the country, but they actually have the best adjusted defense out of both Gonzaga and Baylor. Why is Michigan so good? Well, they're a deep team. We're talking about 3 players, Dickinson, Livers, and Wagner, all over 12.9 points per game. Michigan has great play from their guards, Mike Smith, Eli Brooks, Franz Wagner, and Sean D. Brown coming off their bench. They're all guards who move the ball well and help Michigan facilitate this offense. So the guards move the ball well, but you're also looking at Hunter Dickinson, the big freshman center, who plays down low in the post and is really great at, again, facilitating down low. Lastly, Michigan runs an 8-man rotation and are comfortable with everybody who plays on the court. Michigan, in past years, we've seen them sort of run some guys that you don't want to see on the court. That is not the case this year. Michigan has a very deep lineup and a very good bench. Michigan is obviously an extremely talented team. That's why they're ranked number 3 in the AP polls. But we also have 2 other really talented teams in Gonzaga and Baylor. So let's look at what makes Baylor so good. Baylor comes into this game with a record of 18-0, finding themselves as the #1 team in a very competitive Big 12. Let's take a look at the ranked wins. They've beaten 5 Illinois, 15 Texas Tech, 9 Kansas, and most recently 6 Texas. Obviously, no losses this season. Let's look at their KenPom rankings. Adjusted offense of 122.9, ranking them number 4 in the country. They also have an adjusted defense of 89.8, ranking them 10 in the country, but actually the lowest adjusted defense that we're seeing today. So what makes Baylor so good? Well, it starts with a guy named Jared Butler, who leads the way of Baylor's 4 double-digit scorers with 17.1 points per game. At 43.2%, they're the best three-point shooting team in the country in terms of percentage-wise. They're also 4th in the country in terms of field goal percentage. They're a great rebounding team who, just like Michigan, facilitates the basketball really well. So anyways, we have previewed these 2 teams. Now it's time to actually simulate this matchup. Again, I have a site that is going to simulate this head-to-head matchup between Michigan and Baylor 10 times. It'll give us an overall record in the 10-game series. It'll give us an average score between those 10 games, and then we'll also see an average box score. So this series ended up finishing very close, a lot of tight games, but Baylor ended up taking it by a total score in the 10 games by 6-4. Let's take a look at the box score. We'll start with the losing team of the Michigan Wolverines, led by Isaiah Livers, 15.3 points per game, 4 rebounds, And just like we've seen him sort of do all season, fills up the stat sheet. Isaiah Livers is really the backbone of this Michigan Wolverines team and has been for really a few years now. Second up, Hunter Dickinson, their big freshman center, just under 14 points per game, 9.1 rebounds. I'll tell you what, Michigan may not have won this series, but Hunter Dickinson is somebody to watch in this tournament. He's only a freshman, but this kid is mature. He's got great footwork for his age. Franz Wagner, 13 points per game. Love to see him find some consistency in the tournament. Sean D. Brown, 11 points per game is Michigan's sixth man. You got Eli Brooks, Mike Smith in there as well. Let's flip over to the winning team, Baylor Bears, averaging 81.3 points per game over this time. And again, you see them led by their star player in Jared Butler. 14.2 points per game, 3.2 assists, 2.3 rebounds. You see Mitchell Teague in there as well. You also can see Baylor shooting, again, 42.1% from three. They are the best three-point shooting team in the country. They facilitate the basketball, move it around. They get those open looks. You also see them 15.5 assists. So again, moving the ball, doing exactly what you would expect from the Baylor Bears. Great job, again, in this matchup to get taken care of my Michigan Wolverines. Next up, before we get into Michigan versus Gonzaga, we have to look at Gonzaga's resume. Ranked number 1 right now in the AP polls, and for good reason. Gonzaga comes into this game with a record of 23-0 and ranked number 1 in the West Coast Conference. If we look at their ranked wins, beaten 6 Kansas, 11 West Virginia, 3 Iowa, 16 Virginia. But again, you have to keep in mind, all of these ranked wins were before December 26 back in 2020. Flip over to the KenPom rankings. In terms of adjusted offense, 126. They rank number 1 in the country. Obviously, the best adjusted offense that we're going to see today. And in terms of adjusted defense, 89.3 ranks them 1 ahead of Baylor, ranked number 9 in the country. So what makes Gonzaga so good? Well, they got 4 double-digit scorers. Kispert, Timmy, Suggs, Ayayi. They're the best offense in the country. They have depth. They have a lot of guys who can score. They're the second best in the country in terms of assists. And similar to Michigan, they got great guard play who can facilitate the basketball. Also, shoot the 3 ball very, very well. Common theme between these 3 teams here, they can score, and they can score in chunks. And obviously, Gonzaga is a fairly decent rebounding team as well. They do everything very well. So now it's time to simulate this next matchup between the number 1 seed Gonzaga Bulldogs according to the AP polls and the number 3 seed according to the AP polls in the Michigan Wolverines, who just came off a very tight loss to the Baylor Bears. Will this game change again? Let's see what the head-to-head record looks like for these 10 games. Now, Michigan bounces back heavily here, taking the series by a final score of 7-3, again, over those 10 games. Let's take a look at the box scores. We'll start with the winning team in the Michigan Wolverines, led by their freshman center, Hunter Dickinson, again, 16.7 points per game, very mature for his age. Isaiah Livers, again, filling up the stat sheet. Michigan shot the 3 ball just under 40%, shot pretty well from the field. That's what they would have to do in a real game to beat Gonzaga. Sean D. Brown, again, great performance coming off the bench. Franz Wagner, Eli Brooks in double digits as well. When I say again before that Michigan runs a very good 8-man rotation, really similar to Gonzaga and Baylor. They have a lot of ways that they can score. They're a great scoring offense, but they're depthy. They have a lot of weapons who can beat you. Really contrary to sort of a team like Iowa, where Luka Garza is really your main scorer, gets the main chunk of your points. Michigan, Gonzaga, and Baylor know how to distribute the basketball, find people open looks, and again, use their ability to facilitate the basketball to put up high-scoring numbers. Drew Timme led the way for Gonzaga, 18.2 points per game. This kid has been fantastic this season. He's probably going to win some type of postseason award. Corey Kispert as well. Jalen Suggs put up 12 points per game. And with Ayayi as well, you see Andrew Nembhard, Aaron Cook, Anton Watson added a bunch as well. Gonzaga didn't shoot the 3 ball as well as they have at times this season at only 31%, but still really good from the field. If this game does happen in the March Madness, I mean, it is going to be an exciting one. I do hope that one of these matchups does end up happening in the national championship. If we don't get to see Gonzaga or Baylor or Gonzaga and Michigan at some point in the year, hopefully in the national championship, it'll be a pretty disappointing year, but I think we are in for a very interesting postseason. We have one more game to sim, probably the one that a lot of people are going to find the most interesting. Number 1 Gonzaga Bulldogs versus number 2 Baylor Bears. Gonzaga 0-1 in this series. Baylor came off a very nice win against Michigan earlier on in this video. Can Gonzaga bounce back, or will Baylor show that they are the best team in the country out of that very competitive Big 12? Well, let's take a look. And Baylor actually takes this one by another 7-3 score. Gonzaga not showing up in these series. Baylor again shows that they are a very competitive team and, are making a threat for being the favorite come March Madness time. We'll start with the winning team in the Baylor Bears, averaging 14.5 points per game as Jared Butler. You see Davion Mitchell there as well, and Teague as well, 12 points per game. You see 3 guys in double-digit scoring. You see a bunch of guys above 5 points per game. Baylor shooting the 3 ball at 37%, so a little bit down from their game in Michigan, but again, 42.6% from the field. We're pretty solid defensively in this game. And I'm really excited to see, what Baylor is going to end up doing come the postseason time. Even the Big 12 tournament is going to be very interesting. We have the Kansas game on Saturday that Baylor has. It'll be really interesting to see when Baylor really starts playing some of the heavier games in this Big 12 schedule, if they can keep up the dominance that we've seen from them this entire season. Moving on to the Gonzaga box score, Drew Timme once again leads the way for Gonzaga, 18.8 points per game. Again, this kid is fantastic and fills up the stat sheet as well, getting it done with 7.4 rebounds. Corey Kispert, 15 points per game, 5.2 rebounds. Gonzaga rebounded really well in this game, absolutely demolished in terms of the glass. Suggs, 12 points, 4.6 boards. Ayayi, 9.3 points per game, 6.1 rebounds. Again, I don't think Gonzaga played poorly. I mean, if you actually look at the stat sheet, they played really well. In terms of these simulations, though, it looks like it's the defense that's really hurting Gonzaga. I don't know if that's going to be how it's actually going to be in the March Madness. Again, there's always that point that Gonzaga hasn't really played a tremendous offensive team in 2021. But I do think we're going to be seeing Gonzaga later on in this March Madness tournament, and I think it'll be really interesting to see how Gonzaga really does match up against these Baylors, the Michigans, even the Ohio States, the Kansases, these teams that are creeping up and looking like legit contenders come the March Madness tournament. But anyways, guys, that is all for today's video. Let me know your thoughts on these simulations down in the comment section below. Do you guys like this idea? First of all, I want to hear that down in the comments. And if you guys have any more matchups that you want to see me preview in the future, definitely make sure to let me know. If you did enjoy today's video, make sure to leave a thumbs up, subscribe to Touchdowns to Home Runs for more college basketball content just like this, leading into the conference tournaments, leading into Selection Sunday, and eventually the March Madness. I know I'm hyped. I know that a lot of college basketball fans out there are very hyped for these matchups as well. But as always, guys, if you did make it to this point in the video, thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you again next time.